Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Windenburg, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack Sims 4 Get Together, and I'm going to be building a large Tudor-inspired family home. So this house ends up having 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, and it's built on a 40 by 30 lot. Now it's built on one of the 40 by 30s that are bigger going left to right than what they are front to back, and if I'm being honest with you, I have kind of been putting this house off for my safe file because I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I really struggle with building houses on lot sizes that are bigger width-ways than they are length-ways, just because sometimes I feel like the house looks a bit skew width when you do it like that, and then the garden looks really small and cramped, and I have been putting this one off. But this week I just really fancied it building something Tudor inspired, and also I've really fancied building the world of Windenburg because it's somehow been a while since I've actually built anything in this world, and I normally try and rotate the worlds that I build in, so I try and build in all the worlds equally as one another. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I just basically don't want to leave any world out, and I always try and build in different worlds every single week, and somehow, and I don't even know how it's managed to happen, but I haven't built a Tudor house, and I also really haven't built in Windenburg half as much recently as what I'd like to. And so this week I thought, you know what, I'm just going to tackle this lot, I'm going to try and make it work, and you know what, I'm really happy and really proud at the way this house turned out, and so I really hope you guys like it. But anyway, getting on and actually talking a little bit more about the build. So like I already mentioned, the house ends up having 5 bedrooms. Now I decorated the rooms to be one for a set of parents, or kind of in this house's case, parent and step parent, which by the way I've kind of already gone over it, but this house is going to be for my safe vault, and so like always I have got a storyline in mind for the Sims that are going to be living here in my safe, and I'm really excited about their backstory for 2 reasons. One reason being it's a backstory that I don't think I've done before, and I don't think I've got anything like it in my save file so far. And second of all, it's for a pre-existing family within the world of Windenburg, so if you just got the expansion pack, you're loaded into a brand new world, the family are already bopping about. I'm just going to be giving them makeovers, kind of extending on their personalities and their backstory a little bit, giving them a little bit of lore, and so I'm excited about that. But yeah, there is a bedroom for a parent and a step parent. There is also a young adult's bedroom, a teenager's bedroom, a child's bedroom, and then there is also a spare guest bedroom downstairs as well. Now if I'm being completely honest with you, I had no idea what to do with the room that ends up being the spare guest bedroom pretty much until I came around and actually started decorating it itself. So when I actually came in and I started doing the floor plan, which you can see that I'm actually doing right now, I was pretty much trying to figure out what room is going to be what on the downstairs level. So I was trying to think, okay, over here is going to be the kitchen, over there is going to be a dining space. There actually ends up being 2 dining spaces in this house. It ends up being a little bit more of like a formal one, and then there's a kind of like a breakfast room, which the breakfast room is probably one of my favourite rooms that I've done in this house. But I was just trying to figure it out, and just trying to figure out what kind of things I can have in this house to make it so it's really fun for gameplay and also just filled with loads of different activities. And I was thinking at one point I could possibly make it into like a library, or I can make it into a music room, but there ends up being a garage space in this house, which the garage space I am absolutely just so proud of, because I basically tried to make it look like the teenage sim in this household is in a band, which I know we can't technically do in the Sims 4, but with the Sims 4 Get Together expansion pack you can form clubs and you can make different activities, and I think some of the different activities that you can do within the clubs is to play musical instruments, and so that's kind of the only version that we've got with bands so far in the game. I'm still holding out for maybe one day getting like a game pack related around bands, because I would just love my Sims being able to be in a band and then go and play at the local bar or play at the local lounge and kind of practice and have like these little, I just want a drum kit. That is one of the main things that I want within the game. But I was trying to think of all these different things to make this room into, but where there was already like the band space within the garage, I thought it would be a bit weird to have another separate music room, and so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna make it into another bedroom. That way if you want to download this house and maybe you've got like grandparents or maybe like another sim that you need to cater for, there is already kind of like a dedicated bedroom space for them. Or you can make it into a butler's room, actually thinking about it. I mean, when I was building this house and for the family that I'm building for, which by the way I will get on and talk about their storyline in just a second, but for the family that I imagine to live here, I didn't imagine that they would be the type of Sims to have a butler. I mean, you could do, but it was just an option. It's basically just a free room that you can do anything with. You can keep it as a bedroom, you can change it, alter it. I say this quite often, but when you download my houses, you don't have to stick to all the different rooms that I've allocated. If you wanted to change some rooms around, make it so there's going to be different rooms and different bedrooms, and you wanted to just play about with the house and make it a little bit more like your own, feel free to. I'm not going to be offended. If you don't like my furniture style or you don't like the way I did the house, you can change it. You can use it as a base. You can honestly do whatever you want with this house if you do decide to download it off the gallery. But anyway, getting back and actually talking a little bit more about the build. So as you can see, I've already done the main like structure piece of the build. I've already done the roofing. I've already done the wallpapering. The wallpapering, I was actually quite proud of myself, right? Because there is this one certain swatch of this Tudor wallpaper that I've always avoided when it comes around to building. So you see at kind of like the front portion of the build, I've kind of got a bit of a pop out where the wall kind of goes over the wall below it. I feel like that's something you find quite often in Tudor houses. I didn't do that by mistake, by the way. That was intentional. If you're thinking that the bottom floor doesn't line up to the top floor, it was intentional, even if it doesn't look like it. But on that little pop out, there ends up being this Tudor style wallpaper, and I always avoid that swatch. I don't know what it is, but I've always just been a bit dubious of that swatch, because normally when you pull it out, it's quite dark and it's quite hard to find different wallpapers to match it. But I'm really happy with the wallpapering for this house. I end up using a mixture of different ones from Get Together. I also end up using this Realm of Magic brick on the majority of the house. Then also used a one from Discover University on the second bump out just behind the Tudor one. And then also one that we got from Cottage Living. But the one that we got from Cottage Living, you haven't actually seen me place down yet, because basically I started I started landscaping. I started ivying up. That's not even English, but I started placing down ivy onto this tower, which, first of all, I'm using curved walls again in this build, which this is my second build using curved walls, and I thought it would be easier than the first time, and it wasn't. It was so difficult, because the way that The Sims 4 has been made, and it has been going on for so many years, we've only now just got the introduction of curved walls. There is little to no objects that actually suit curved walls, and so when you're trying to place down ivy, normally I use the one that we got from the Discover University live edit menu, but where it's a live edit menu, it doesn't normally clip to anything, so it's really easy sometimes when you're trying to landscape like the back of a house or the front of the house, whatever. It's normally quite easy to work with where it doesn't snap. But on the same token, where it doesn't snap and you're trying to work with curved walls, there was very much an obvious, okay, this doesn't actually curve around the wall, it's just pretty much poking out. And so I ended up placing down some ivy that we got from both the Vampires game pack, and then I think some bits of ivy from Get Together as well. These ones you can actually find within the Sims 4 normal build and buy, because often people ask me where the ivy that I normally use is from. The ivy that I normally use, I did actually place down in certain areas on this house. I mean, you can see it just kind of like on the edge of the garage and on the edge of another bump out. There ends up being some bits of the normal ivy that I use, but normally people ask me where that is from, and it is from the live edit menu or the debug menu, one of the two. I'm not sure which one, but it is from one of them, and it's from Discover University. But the one that I've actually used, you can find in the normal build and buy. And the one thing that I really liked about it, which was a little bit different, is the ivy's got some different colour swatches. So you'll notice that I placed down a bit of like a yellowy kind of green, then there is also some red in there as well, and I tried to tie in the red into the landscaping, because I feel like for a Tudor build it makes sense to have some red flowers, or at least some red landscaping, because like a Tudor rose, I don't know, it just goes well in my head. And so I was really happy when I was like kind of cluttering up that little ivy tower. But on the inside as well, I forgot to mention, I ended up making it into a little bit of a miniature art studio in the inside of the tower, which I rarely ever do actual art studios in my builds, because quite frequently I don't really have a sim that needs an art studio, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the storyline. And originally when I was doing the floor plan, I was thinking that could be an extra bathroom, because it doesn't hurt to have an extra toilet here and there. But then when I was actually thinking about it and I was getting more into the build and developing the storyline in my head, I was realising that one of the sims kind of needs a dedicated workspace or a bit of a dedicated art area, and so I thought it would be a perfect fit to have a little miniature art studio in that tower, and it is just so pretty. The screenshots of that room, and also one thing that I did is I placed down the art easel directly in between the space of the windows. So I know that I've kind of like moved the camera around now, but if you were to look at the build like head on, in between the tower, there's kind of like this little gap in between the windows. I placed down the art easel in there, and then that way when your sims are standing there and they're painting, they can paint from reference, and then they can just kind of look out onto the landscape around them, look out the window, and then maybe paint, I don't know, like the driveway or the mountains in the distance or something like that. I don't know, it just ends up being a really cute space. And I don't often build art related rooms or like art studios. I've done a few in the past, but they're not a room that I often tend to go for. But yeah, anyway, moving on from that and actually getting on and actually talking about the sims that are going to be living in this house for my save file. So the household, originally, when you open up a brand new save file, they are called the Munch family. I say originally, I'm not going to change their name. It's just, they're called the Munch family, and it consists of 4 sims. We have Mila, Gunther, Wolfgang and Lucas, and they are a mum and then her 4 sons. Now, originally, when you open up a brand new save file, I'm saying originally because I'm going to completely change it because it's always annoyed me, but originally when you go into their family tree, you'll notice that there is absolutely no mention of a previous parent. There is no like second parent to these little boys. It's just Mila and then the 3 sons, which is something that just really annoys me. Like, even if the sim isn't around anymore, I just still want there to be a little picture in the family tree, just because for my gameplay experience it just makes it so much better. And so there is going to be a extra parent in the family tree. They're still going to be alive, but they're not going to be living in this household, because I was trying to think of the backstory that they were originally given by the Sims team, and I wanted to kind of not completely change their backstory. I didn't want to completely change themselves as their Sims, and I didn't want to change their personality. If anything, I kind of wanted to take it and expand on it, and also kind of like make it backfire on one of the Sims in particular, because the way that the different Sims are aged, we have one that's a young adult, one that's a teen, and then one that's a kid. But the young adult is pretty much refusing to move out, and that's pretty much the whole entire storyline, and the whole entire household bio kind of revolves around the fact that the eldest son will not move out of the house. They won't go and find their own place. They just kind of want to be living at home, getting their laundry done, and getting, you know, freshly meals cooked every single night, which also I want to mention that Mila is a chef, so probably doesn't help her case that her son doesn't want to move out, because she probably cooks up an absolute storm in the kitchen, and her son, why would he want to move out? Do you know what I mean? So I was trying to think of something that could backfire on her son and kind of make it a little bit more interesting, and also kind of make it so the backstory's got a little bit of a twist. But starting out with Mila and the previous parent to the little boys. So I was thinking that Mila had previously been married to, I was thinking her ex-husband for maybe like 20, 30 years, something like that, where she's got one of her sons to be a young adult. I was thinking that they'd probably been married for quite a few decades. You know, her eldest son, he's at the age where he can now make her like a grandmother or something, and so she's probably been previously married for quite a long duration of time. And I was more so thinking it was a fact of she probably met her ex-partner when she was fairly young, and they probably got married fairly quickly, and then they started a family. Now, Mila originally, when you go into a brand new save file, like I said, is in the culinary career. She is a chef, and so I'm going to be keeping that for my save. And it also mentions in the household bio that she works really long hours, and so I was thinking that her and both her ex-husband both just had really long, tiring jobs. I was thinking that her ex-husband can either be in the business career or the salary person career, but then as I was developing it more, I was thinking the salary person career is probably better, because I've been playing with the salary person career in my own personal gameplay, and something that I've noticed, I'm not sure if it's a mod, so it might be a mod, and let me know if this has happened to anyone else, because I don't know if it's actually one of the game's things or if it's just a mod that I've got in my game, but one of my Sims is in the salary person career, and often I give them the option to work extra hours than what they needed to be, just because sometimes it's just easier to have less Sims in the house. My own personal gameplay experience anyway, and so I like there to be different things for different Sims to do. You know, they can go out and they can go out with their mates, or if Sims can work extra long hours, it kind of works out sometimes, because sometimes when you're playing with a huge generation family and you've got like 6 Sims in the household, it's a bit tiring, and so often I get my Sim to work extra hours, but I find that sometimes my Sims come home with presents for the other household members. I don't know if that's a mod that I've got or if that's actually just something in the game, but I thought it worked out quite nicely because it kind of fits in with the storyline that I had for them. So for the dad, I was thinking that they work the salary person career. They often spend really long durations of times at work. You know, they probably go to work and are there for like 12 hours or something, and so they often come home, apologise, you know, give Mila a present, you know, just try and keep her sweet, try and keep her happy. But I was thinking, in all the time that they spend at work doing all of these extra off the clock hours, they probably got really close to one of their co-workers. Now I feel like we can probably all see what route I'm going to go with this one, but basically, to cut a very long story short, I imagine that during all this time her ex-husband was working extra hours off the clock, you know, clocking in at stupid times in the morning and clocking out at stupid times at night. He probably developed quite a close friendship and then eventually evolved into a bit of a office romance with one of the co-workers, and eventually I imagine that he actually left Mila to go and be with this new fiance, new partner, just kind of decided that this is what he wanted to do. He was maybe a little bit bored of his life because he was just consistently waking up, going to work, spending all of his time with these people, and then coming home, and didn't really have that much to talk about with his ex-wife because his whole entire life was pretty much devoted to being someone in the salary person career. And so that was kind of like the dad storyline. I think I'm not going to make it so he lives in an actual house or an apartment. He might just be a Sim that's gonna, I don't want to say be in the bin, but you know, like the household, what is it? There is a name for it. I'm going to call it the household bin, where all the Sims that don't have a house or an apartment, they just kind of, they're there. You can move them into places, but I think I'm just going to make it so he's not going to be living in the actual world itself, but he's still going to be a Sim that their kids can go and see. You know, the little boys can still go and see their dad. They can still have a relationship with them, probably have a relationship with their new partner or something. But in terms of they're going to be like living somewhere, I think it would just be the Sims bin, which sounds really weird to say, but that was pretty much the idea that I had for the dad. Now I was thinking that this probably left the mum of the household really just, obviously she's going to have her heart shattered. She's just found out that her husband has been having an affair, and now she's still got the exact same life that she had. She just doesn't have someone to share it with. And so I imagine that for maybe a few years, maybe like 2 or 3 years, she went on this way of consistently just going to work, working long hours, coming home, caring for a little boy, caring partly for a teenager, because I imagine the teenager to be quite independent and doesn't really rely on any household members, but she has got a little kid, and so I imagine that she probably just spends a lot of her time with him. She's probably got a really good relationship with him, but at the end of the day, she's actually quite a lonely Sim. Now, this is kind of like the part of the backstory where it's a bit of a twist, and it also backfires on her eldest son, because he should have moved out, because if he didn't move out, then this wouldn't have happened. But I was looking at all the different individual Sims and all their different interests and traits and all the different clubs that they're already in within the world itself, and I noticed that her eldest son is in a book club. Now, I've never personally been in a book club myself, but I've seen several different TV shows and films over the years where characters happen to be in a book club, and I've got a little bit of an idea of how they work. So my interpretation is, oftentimes if you are in a book club, you kind of have a book, you read it for a certain duration of time, whether it be like a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long it is, and then at the end of reading a certain amount of chapters, or maybe the whole entire book, you kind of rotate all the different houses that you go to. So say you've got like 5 different book club members, you kind of rotate. In 1 week you might go to one member's house, the next week you might go to the other member's house. You kind of like rotate with whose house is kind of like hosting the book club of that week. This is my interpretation anyway, but I was thinking that in this book club, the eldest son, this one particular week, just happened to be hosting, and they happened to be having the book club meeting, maybe in this room actually, which I've actually now moved on to the inside, which I'm pretty sure you probably realised, but in this room, this is kind of like the breakfast room. Maybe they were sitting here and they were discussing the book of the week or the book of the month or something with all the different book club members. Now, I was thinking that maybe at one point, the mum, Mila, just happened to walk past the room, maybe just happened to pop in, maybe wanted to offer anyone if they wanted a tea or a coffee or something, and then eventually got talking to some of the members. Now, Mila herself, I imagine to be always quite this outgoing and good Sim. She hasn't got the outgoing trait. She does have the good trait as well as the foodie and cheerful trait, so she's all around just kind of like a nice Sim to interact with, but I've always seen her to be as someone that's quite nice to spark up a conversation with. You know, she'll probably be a bit chatty, where she's probably a bit lonely. She'll probably spark up a conversation probably about next to anything, because I imagine that she probably spends all of her time at work in the kitchen, and then when she comes home, she is either, you know, in the kitchen making a new recipe, practicing a new recipe for something, or maybe spending time with her little boy, because the household bio states that she's got quite a good relationship with her youngest son, and so she's either cooking or spending time with him, and so she probably doesn't go out that much with her own personal friends. She probably just sees them on a whim every once in a blue moon kind of thing, so she probably doesn't have that much social interaction. But I was thinking that this one particular day they were hosting the book club at this family's house, and Mila maybe just happened to spark up a little bit of a conversation with one of the book club members in particular. And I was thinking that maybe if it did take place in the breakfast room, it's kind of just off the kitchen, so maybe they sparked up a conversation, they got chatting, maybe they like cracked a few jokes with each other and whatnot, and then at one point they maybe walked through the kitchen again, another conversation sparked up. Basically what I imagined was these Sims just met kind of on a whim. She met this person in her house, which just happens to be one of her son's really good friends, and basically, to cut a very long story short, I imagined that they ended up forming quite a nice romantic relationship. Now, I just thought that this was such a funny and interesting storyline, because it's literally an example of your own actions this is kind of like the repercussions, is that the right word to use? I'm not even sure, but it's kind of like these are the actions of your own actions. You refuse to move out, and now your mum happens to be forming quite a nice, healthy, romantic relationship with one of your, maybe they're not good friends, but one of your fellow book club members, and it probably makes her eldest son feel so uncomfortable, and it's probably got him ready to move out at this stage. You know, he's a young adult. He probably thinking, right, okay, this is probably a bit too much now. You were my friend. You're now becoming my stepmother. How is this? This is a little bit uncomfortable for me. So it's kind of like, that is the actions of his own actions. You know, you should have moved out, mate. You should have gone and got yourself your own apartment, your own flat or something, because now this is kind of like your reality, and soon you're going to have an extra step parent. You're going to have someone else, and kind of your friend who was just your mutual has now got a little bit of, not authority, because I imagine that they're the same age. They're both young adults, or maybe the mum's new fiance, or maybe new wife. I'm unsure whether to make him married or not, but I was thinking that they're either going to be a adult or young adult just about to age up into an adult, but more about the new step parent of the household. Now, this sim, who I don't at the minute have a name for, so if you've got any name suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. But I was imagining that this new sim had kind of previously moved to one of the surrounding neighbourhoods of Windenburg, and I'm saying surrounding neighbourhoods because it kind of ties in the story quite nicely if it's not in the actual world of Windenburg itself. But I imagine that they previously moved to somewhere like, I don't know, Willow Creek or Newcrest, even though I don't imagine them to be neighbouring, like, neighbourhoods between Windenburg and Newcrest. They don't really seem like they mesh well together, but when I figure out what would be a good hometown for them, I'll let you know. But I was thinking that they recently moved to one of the surrounding neighbourhoods near Windenburg, and they were pretty much just looking to make some new friends. They wasn't probably setting out to have any romantic interest. They didn't, like, move away from their previous hometown because of any dramatic backstory. I imagine that they just kind of wanted a change of environment, a change of scenery, and so they decided to move into a little bit more of a quieter town, maybe like a quieter world. Maybe they're from like San Marino or something like that, and maybe they wanted to have a little bit more of a quieter life, and so they moved somewhere that is relatively close to the world of Windenburg. Now, I imagine in doing this, they were probably looking at to form new relationships, form new friendships, and one good place to start if you're ever looking to make new friends is to start like a book club or go to some type of club for some type of activity. It's a great way to make mates, and so this sim probably didn't have a massive interest in reading themselves. They just more so wanted to have some friends around the environment that they're now living in, but they decided that the best book club for them to join would probably be the one that Mila's eldest son happened to be in, because maybe the one in Windenburg is like the most active one. Maybe there's some in the world that the sim is originally from, but they're maybe not as active. Maybe there's not as many people in these book clubs, and so they decided to form into this book club, become a member, and, you know, every so often read a book and chat about it, basically. Now, I imagine that this sim in particular is going to be someone that's got very similar traits to Mila, who is the mum of the household, just because I feel like that's probably how they got such a good friendship so quickly. I imagine that they probably was friends first, and then after a while, then romantic interest started to creep in. But I imagine that this new sim is probably cheerful and good like Mila, but the only difference is instead of being a foodie, they're going to be an art lover, and that is the reason why on the upstairs level of this house, I decided to make a little tiny art studio. So I imagine that previously it was probably just like a bits and bobs room, something where everyone puts their stuff where you don't want to deal with it right now, just shove it in that room and deal with it later, and no one ever came back to it. I imagine that tower previously used to be just a bit of a bits and bobs room, but then eventually this new sim decided to move into the household because maybe where they're not from Windenburg, Mila probably couldn't go and see them as often as what they want to. You know, they're working long hours. They haven't really got time of an evening to maybe drive down to one of the neighbouring worlds and, you know, go see them for a few hours, because who's going to look after her little boy? I know she's got a teenager, but her teenager's a bit of a rebel, and half the time cannot be accounted for because he's probably in a swimming pool lot somewhere, probably pulling pranks on someone. And so I imagine that quite quickly this sim decided to move into this house. Maybe they started out actually sleeping in the guest bedroom. Maybe that's how the guest bedroom can tie into this house. I mean, I've literally just thought of that idea right now, but maybe they started sleeping over, maybe they started sleeping on the sofa or in this spare guest bedroom, and then eventually they just decided to give their relationship a proper little go, and they decided that they would actually form some form of really just meaningful, deep romantic interest. And I imagine that it probably was so easy as well, because I imagine that their friendship was already there, and then it just so happened so naturally being able to kind of like evolve into being romantic partners. So that is pretty much where I'm up to in terms of the mum storyline, and then the new, either he's going to be the new wife or the new fiance. I'm still unsure whether I should make him married or not, or if I should make him so they're going to be planning their event, and then in gameplay, if you wanted to, you could actually get them to get married. Either way, that's kind of like the storyline that I've got for the, I want to say like the authority members, like the parent and step-parent household members. Even though they're not married yet, I still very much see this new sim to be very much of a second mother figure to, you know, the youngest son, Lucas. I imagine that they've probably got a really good friendship. I imagine that they probably have some similar interests. Lucas himself, their little boy, is really into gardening. He's in a garden gnomes club, which is one of the primo clubs that comes with the Get Together expansion pack, and he's also got the loves outdoors trait. So maybe the new stepmom, maybe she also has a similar interest in gardening. Also, by the way, I do want to mention, on the back garden, I do actually come back at the very end of the video and actually change it so there's kind of like a little farming patch, because I was really stuck on the back garden. Like I said at the start of the video, whenever I do houses and build on lots that are bigger widthways than they are lengthways, I always really struggle with the back garden, and so I was really stuck and I kept on redoing it, and I was having such a mare basically when I was doing it part of the back garden. But you'll see at the very end of the video, I actually come back, I make it a little bit less wide and basically make one little area, which originally I placed down some planters and a flower arranging table, I make it into a bit of a vegetable patch, put it that way, because I was thinking maybe then that way the kid in this household also has something else that they can do. There is also other planters in and around the house and on the lot itself, but I just thought it would be a nice little thing, and I was really stuck on that area originally, and I just really wanted to get in and start furnishing the house, and so I just decided that I'd come back to it at the end. But moving on and talking about the teenager of this household, who is Wolfgang. Now, if you've got the Get Together expansion pack, I can almost guarantee at some point in time you would have either interacted with this teenager or you would have at least seen them, because maybe it's just my save files, but whenever I go to any community lot in the world of Windenburg, this teenager is there somewhere pulling pranks, making it so when your sim uses the toilet it's going to flood, or maybe like altering the plumbing systems. Basically, this teenager is part of the really infamous club, which I can never remember the name of, and I can also never really pronounce it properly, so I'm also trying to avoid that as well. But he's basically part of this really naughty club that is just kind of like notorious for pulling pranks on people, being horrible to people, and just all round not really being a nice sim to spend your time with. Now, this sim himself, he's got two traits. He is gloomy and he is mean, and he's dressed quite gothic. He's quite a bit of a rebel, a little bit of a goth, and I just thought this was so fun and so interesting for his storyline. I don't really have too many sims like this in my save file so far. I'm definitely going to make some more, but so far I haven't really done any bedrooms decorated towards this kind of style. His bedroom was so much fun to decorate because it's very rebellious, it's very gothic like. It was a kind of teenage room that I don't very often do. You can now see that I've actually moved on into the garage, and this garage space ends up being kind of like his band practice room, and you can see that I've already placed down loads of different posters on the walls. Some of them have some skulls on. I also have a few different club flags which have the skull on, which is kind of like the club's icon. So that just speaks 1,000 words within itself. Now, in terms of his storyline, if I'm being honest, I didn't really want to change anything about it, because the storyline that the Sims team kind of, I don't want to say created for him, because it doesn't actually have an individual storyline itself, but the idea that the Sims team gave us was he's a gloomy teenager, he's pretty antisocial. If he ever does go out in public, he always just ends up just messing with things and putting pranks and just being a bit horrible to the general like neighbourhood and all the Sims in the neighbourhood. And so I didn't really want to change that, because I just thought that was so fun for gameplay. And so the only thing that I think I'm going to add to him for my save file is I'm going to make it so he's got a skill in programming, because when you go into a brand new save, he's got 2 skills, one in logic and then one in mischief. I'm going to make it so he's got a skill in programming, because if your Sims have a high enough, I think it's high enough both mischief and programming, they can actually hack into their school grades and change them on the system, which is just so fun for storyline, because I don't imagine him to go to school. I imagine that he always says to his mum, yeah, all right, I'm going to school, and he doesn't. He probably just heads off to Bluffs or something, and he just completely skips school. He's a proper just never go to school, and the only reason he's got good grades, which I don't even think he's got good grades when you go into a brand new safe file. I think he's got like a C, which isn't like, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not bad, but it's not exactly A+. And so I think the only reason why he's got these kind of like normal grades is just because he's hacking into the system. So I think the only one change I'm going to make to him is so he's got this high programming skill. If you've ever seen Drake and Josh, you know Megan, a bit like that, but teenage version. So I thought that was quite interesting. I was also thinking that he might have a potential crush on one of his fellow club members, which is Morgan, another sim that is going to be in my save file. She's already a pre-existing townie in the world of Windenburg, but I was thinking he's such a shy individual. He's probably too scared to make a move, and so maybe that could be something and kind of like his individual storyline for gameplay. Maybe you want to make it so he can eventually have a relationship with her. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't really have too much in terms of changing his storyline because I thought the one that we kind of originally got for him was pretty much perfect to suit his character. He also wants to one day grow up and become a public enemy, which it just speaks for itself. Like, it's just not, you don't exactly want to chit chat with him on the road if you pass him, because he would probably insult you if you go past him. But I just thought it was really fun and really interesting, and so I'm going to keep him exactly how he is. And then there is a little boy as well, like I've briefly kind of skipped over, which is Lucas. He's the little kid of the household, completely different to his teenage brother. Now, originally in the household bio for the Munch family, it's kind of stated that the mum Mila has a really good relationship with this little boy. She'll come home from a long day of work and she'll spend time with her son, and so he's just an all-round good little kid. He likes the outdoors, he's got some skills in creativity and motor, and he maybe wants to one day grow up and become like a gardener or something like that. Originally, I'm pretty sure he has a pair of little yellow wellies, or what they call, some people call them different things, like rubber boots. I don't know how else to say them, but I know different places call wellies different things, but I call them wellies. But he's wearing some little yellow wellies originally when you go into a brand new save file, and I think I might keep that because I feel like it just suits him as a sim and it kind of suits his character. But yeah, that was pretty much the storyline that I've got for this family that's going to be living in this house in my save. I'm so happy with this storyline because it is so different to anything that I've done before, and I also think it's just so funny the fact that the storyline that we originally got was this young adult was kind of refusing to move out of his family home, and his mum wasn't exactly too happy about it, and then because of his own actions he just happened to form a book club within his house, and then eventually lots happened, and then his now previous fellow mutual or previous fellow book club member is now just becoming his step-parent. I just thought that was really funny and just really interesting for gameplay. But anyway, moving on from that and actually getting on and getting back to talking about the build and what I'm doing right now. So you might have noticed that I've pretty much done the majority of the downstairs furnishing, which I'm never a massive fan of when I talk over like the inside furnishing, because I normally like to talk about the building process and what items are from what pack and whatnot. But I've been thinking about this storyline pretty much all week, and I've just been really excited to share it. So hopefully you don't mind that I spoke over the majority of the downstairs furnishing, but you would have seen I did like quite a big kitchen, the breakfast room, which I briefly mentioned, that ends up being a little bit more of a formal-ish dining room in the downstairs area. It was a really weird shape. It was really ickledy-pickledy, and I really struggled with that room, but I think I managed to make it work. But then also downstairs you would have seen one of the bedrooms, the home office, which is for the eldest son because he is in the writer's career, and so I wanted to have a little office space for him. And then also at the garage room as well. I really tried my absolute hardest to try and make the garage space feel like as much of a band practice room as I could possible. So you might have noticed in there I placed down the DJ mixing station, or like the DJ mixing thing, the object. I honestly hardly ever use that because it's a bit of a weird shape in terms of you have to have certain space for your Sims to actually be able to get around and actually get into interacting with the object itself, but it's also quite difficult just to place into ordinary houses. But that was pretty much in the garage space room, the make do drum kit, because like I said, I really want a drum kit in the game. Not even just a drum kit, I'd love if we could get so many different more musical instruments, like a flute, a saxophone. I would absolutely love it if my Sims could play the saxophone, or like the harp, which I feel like the harp probably should have come with the My Wedding Stories game pack. But I just want there to be more musical instruments in the game rather than just the guitar, the violin and the piano, because after how many years of The Sims 4, it's just a little bit repetitive sometimes. And so I'm holding out still one day that we're going to be able to get a band game pack or kit or something, and if that is the case, then I'll come back to this house and I'll I'll change it so then there is actually like a drum kit in there, because I really imagine the teenager in this household to be someone that plays the drums. I just feel like that kind of suits his character. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs level of the house. I've already done one of the bathrooms. Now, like always, if you've been here for a while, you know the gist. I only ever show the furnishing of one bathroom just because they're too boring, they're too repetitive. There's only so many times I can show you placing down a toilet and a sink for it to be interesting in one video, and so I only ever really show the furnishing of one. The one that I did show you though, I am so happy with. It just, there's nothing too special about it. I mean, I did place down a little shelving unit onto the bathtub, which, by the way, if you are curious, 100% works. Your Sims pretty much act like it's not even there, but I'm just really happy with the way the bathroom turned out. It feels very built in and very custom to the house, and it feels a little bit, it's a bit of a darker bathroom. Normally, whenever it comes to me furnishing and decorating bathrooms on houses, I normally try and make them quite light, but because the house is quite Tudor-y, and the rest of the house is decorated not dark and Tudor-y, but it's quite dark on the inside, I wanted it to kind of reflect that into the bathrooms. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into one of the bedrooms, and this just happens to be the bedroom for the little boy, which is Lucas. Now, in here, I'm not going to lie to you, I really did struggle in terms of what bed to use, what wallpaper to use. As always, I do all the wallpapering off camera and the flooring. It just takes me so long. You wouldn't actually believe how long wallpapering and flooring takes me, because I normally just end up going for a similar handful of wallpapers and flooring, but normally there is such a choosing process when it comes around to me picking for all the individual rooms. And then with the kids' room especially, I wanted it to be playful and I wanted it to be a fun room because it is a kid, but then I didn't want it to be to like stand out. I didn't want it to stick out like a sore thumb from the overhead of the house, where the rest of the house is decorated quite dark and it's got lots of different like dark browns and lots of deep wood colours. And so I tried to do the best Tudor-y kids room that I could possible. I actually really like the way it turned out. You might notice I got this one pillow that we got from the Little Campers kit, and I basically rotated it and I merged it into the bed. The bed that I use, by the way, if you're curious, is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. Hardly ever use that bed. I don't know what it is, but I'm not the biggest fan of all the different swatches that it comes in, but there is this one particular swatch that I use, and I thought it went quite nice with the rest of the house. And also the bed frame itself was a similar wood pattern to the rest of the house, or like the rest of the wood within the house, if that makes sense. But anyway, as you can see, I just quickly did one of the other rooms, which happens to be the little art studio. So that is the art studio for the stepmother of this household, or kind of like the step parent. It just ended up turning out so lovely in there. I used quite a leery wallpaper. I always refer to that wallpaper in my head anyway as the Marmite wallpaper, because the wallpaper that I use in that room, I feel like you either love it or you absolutely hate it, a bit like Marmite. And I use that wallpaper in a few different rooms within the house. I think I used it in the breakfast room, and then also the spare guest bedroom downstairs, and then the art room itself. But in there I ended up placing down, I think, 2 different art easels, a few different carts that look like they've got loads of different like bits and bobs to do with painting and different art paint brushes and stuff, and just loads of different stuff that I feel like if you're an artist, you're gonna have somewhere within your house, like loads of different crafting tools and loads of different equipment to help you paint. But that room, the screenshots of it are just so pretty, and also I feel like it's just such a good room if you are an artist and you're looking for kind of like a really open space that you can just go in and you can completely clear your mind and you can stand there and you can paint. It's got these windows that kind of like curve around and it looks out onto the scenery. Like I said, your Sims can paint the driveway if they want to, or they can maybe just paint like a normal picture. They can paint from reference, but probably would just be like the window and the driveway. But the idea in my head was, you know, the Notebook, the film The Notebook, I was imagining, you know, when, I can't think of the character's name, but she always wanted a room outlooking something so she can paint. That was what I was thinking of when I was doing that room. But anyway, now as you can see, I've now moved on into the next bedroom, which is the teenager's bedroom. So in here, I basically purposely placed his bedroom at the very end of the house, because pretty much this room area, or like this little space within the build itself, it only ended up having one window. And originally I was thinking that I could make it into the little boy Lucas's room, because the room that actually ends up being his bedroom is slightly bigger than this one. But because of Wolfgang's personality, because of him as a character, he's quiet, keeps himself to himself, doesn't really like that much social interaction. To have a bedroom that is completely separate to the rest of the house, it's not like miles away, but it's at the very end of a dark hallway, it just suits him perfectly. And so I decided to make this room into his. And then you might have seen that I actually brought in the outside brick onto the inside of this room. I was originally going to use this like black painted wallpaper, or like maybe it was just paint as the inside like wallpaper colour. But then I was thinking about it, and it was a little bit, I wanted it to have a little bit more texture, so I basically used the same brick that's on the outside on one wall, and then I just changed the colour swatch of it to be a bit of a darker one, and then use that on the other wall. That way it feels a little bit more rebellious, a little bit more gothic, and I'm really happy the way this room turned out. As you can see in the corner, I ended up placing down the bed that we got from the high school years expansion pack. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit disappointed in the fact of when it came round to trying to find a bed that suits his quite gothic, quite rebellious personality, there wasn't that many, I found anyway, so maybe that's something that we need more in the game. I've never, because I don't really normally build bedrooms and decorate bedrooms to a rebellious goth. I've done a few probably, but I don't really do that many, so I've never really noticed it before. But I was finding that trying to pick out a bed, you wouldn't have seen it because I cut it out, but I was searching for a while. I was debating using the one that we got from Eco Lifestyle, but I didn't like the fact that it had some wood that didn't really match with the rest of the room. But in here, besides the point, you can see that I end up placing down a little computer desk, and on the desk itself, it actually looks like an old door. Now, I was debating whether I should use this particular desk or not, because my thought process is we got it with the Werewolf game pack, and the whole idea, I think, originally of this desk is werewolves have probably just used loads of different like scraps from all the different areas of the world of Moonwood Mill, which is the world that we got from that game pack, and they've probably just made furniture out of scraps of previous furniture. And I was thinking it doesn't really suit I don't want to say a wealthy teenager, but I mean, let's be honest, this house is quite big. It's quite a big family home, and it's quite not fancy, but it's decorated quite, they've got a bit of money to put, better luck or worse, they've got a little bit of money. And so I was thinking, does it really suit, because it's quite it doesn't really suit with the rest of the house, it doesn't really make much sense. But then I was thinking about, what about the situation of maybe Wolfgang is so independent that he wants to make all of his own money. He probably makes some money from all the different computer hack programming stuff that he does, and so maybe he made the desk himself. Maybe he built it from previous scraps, and maybe he doesn't really rely on his mum and his step parent to kind of provide for him. Maybe he's very independent in that way. He is quite independent himself, like he's quite a shy character, so I feel like that does kind of make sense with his storyline. Either way, I am absolutely in love with the way that I decorated his room. It was so much fun because it was so refreshing to do a bit of a gothic, rebellious theme for his bedroom. I don't know, I used loads of different debug menu items and live edit menu items. I found loads of different like air horns, which I imagine that he uses all the time when he pulls pranks. There's loads of different like werewolf statues that have little werewolves themselves on there. I also used the cow plant skull in his room, which again fits in perfectly with his whole entire vibe. I mean, his club gathering, their icon is a literal skull, and so it kind of fits in. But every single time I see that cow plant skull, I just remember the absolute embarrassment that I had, because originally when we got the werewolf game pack, I said in my first video, which bear in mind I built a werewolf family home at the same night that the werewolf game pack came out, and so I wasn't really running on that much sleep. I thought at first glance that cow plant skull wasn't a cow plant skull, and at first, and I said it in the voiceover, I thought it was a werewolf skull, and so at first I was referring to it as a werewolf skull, and it wasn't until people started to tell me, no Jess, that's actually a cow plant skull. But either way, I placed it down into that room. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last bedroom of this house. So this is the parents and step parents room. So this is Mila's room. I really had no idea how big I made this room when I was originally doing the floor plan, until I came in and I actually placed the bed into the middle, and then I realised the room is absolutely massive, and so I had to find a way to fill it out a little bit. I did use some platforms to kind of block off one of the walls, and then I also placed down one of the wardrobes that we got from the Get Together expansion pack to kind of like fill out some of that space quite nicely. I also placed down like a nice little bookcase in the corner. There's also this really big like Tudor window in this bedroom, which I felt like was very appropriate to put in this build somewhere, as I am building a Tudor-inspired build. And then you can see that I'm just going to go around now, kind of like finish their room off. I ended up placing down, I think, like an armchair, I think a little vanity table as well in the corner, because I was really stuck when I turned the camera in terms of what do I place over here, because everything I would have placed, I've already placed onto the other side of the room because it's so big. I just didn't know what to fill it out with. But I ended up placing down a little vanity table. I'm pretty sure I placed down some like makeup eyeshadow palettes on there, and just some like general stuff that I feel like you would have on a makeup vanity table. But apart from that, I'm gonna go out to the outside of the build. I'm gonna readjust that little garden patch in the back garden like I was talking about. I just had a proper mare with it originally when I was trying to figure it out, and like I said, I just wanted to get in and start furnishing because I was so excited to actually start furnishing the inside of this house. But apart from that, I'm gonna finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm gonna end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedbuilding video. Bye guys!